35 years of marriage, trust, love, and loyalty. Until one night, I heard sounds from the guest room that changed everything. What was my husband hiding? And why was he sneaking away at night? This is my story.
I woke up one sweaty night and he was not in bed. The living room was quite airy, so I thought he would be there. I decided to join him. He was not in the living room, neither was he in the washroom. Then I thought he might be checking up on the grandchildren who had come for the holidays with their nanny whilst their parents travelled. I opened their door softly, but he was not with them. He may be getting a glass of water, which I also needed badly, so I headed sleepily towards the kitchen. He was not there either. I came back to the living room and peeped through the windows. What would he be doing outside at that ungodly hour anyway? I went back down the corridor, and then I heard the sound of the shower coming from our bedroom. Where could he have been when I had looked into almost all the rooms in the house? I got back into bed to wait for him. He had to provide answers to his mysterious midnight adventure. Finally, he came out of the shower. He said we might have missed each other's way. I accepted his hasty explanation without further questioning. Anyway, the house was a 6-bedroom house with 2 outhouses he had inherited from his father. Then it happened again. He was not beside me in bed when I woke up one midnight. The temperature in the room was cool. We had just had our faulty AC fixed, but Kweku did not fancy using it. He said it made his skin dry and his throat itchy, so whenever it was too cold for his liking, he continued his sleep in the living room. Whichever temperature it was in the bedroom, my husband found his way to the living room. So I trudged sleepily to the living room. He was there. I stretched on the adjoining couch. I might have fallen asleep, but when I opened my eyes again, my husband was not in his place. I thought he might have gone back to the bedroom. Just then, I heard a click of what I knew was the sound of the guest room door. I could easily tell the sound of all the doors in the house. Sleep flew instantly from my eyes. I went down the corridor almost on tiptoe. Then I heard a muffled, throaty cough. Why was he in the guest room when it was just as warm as the other rooms without ACs? I put an ear to the keyhole. Was my imagination running riot? I heard all sorts of noises, heavy breathing, moaning and whispering. I froze. I could say my hair stood on end. Was my guess right? My husband had probably been sneaking his mistress into our home right under my nose. When did this begin? Did he think I would not smell a rat? I walked away from the door, then back again, my befuddled mind and heart at war. Why would a woman steal into the home of a married man when his wife was in the house? Had he been doing that for a while now, and he could not pull the reins even when I was around? Our marriage was far from being dead wood. In fact, after his retirement as a civil servant, we had not had a more amiable union. We were happy and chattier than before. He told stories of his workplace, and I told of mine. There was never a dull moment, even as we watched TV. What had gone amiss for him to start having an affair? My hand flew to the handle of the door. Suddenly, I felt a nudge on my senses. I leaned against the wall and hugged the housecoat closer to my body. I was a woman with a strong political ambition, shelved for many years. I worked as a human resource manager, and now that I had joined my husband at home on retirement, my love for politics was very much heightened. Therefore, I became a card-bearing member of the Progressive Alliance for Positive Change, PAPC. It would not hurt a fly if I engaged in politics. Would it not be a joy to push women's agenda in national affairs? There was nothing much to do as a retiree anyway. I woke up at the same time as I did when I was a worker. I would listen to the morning religious devotion on radio, after which I cleaned up the house and sometimes stepped out of the house to greet a friend or two in the neighbourhood. When I got really bored, I would take a short ride to my childhood friend Amy. We would talk about everything on planet Earth, from the tiny rash on our grandchildren's bottom to the latest Kaba fashion styles which we regretted unable to wear for. We had grown out of proportion. Day after day, I got more involved in my political party activities. One weekend, we had scheduled a Women's Week celebration at
Joe's parlour.
I woke up earlier than usual, filled with excitement. Election of officers was on the agenda. I was anxious about choosing the right people to lead our women's wing. A few names bounced in my head. Those women were very versatile and outspoken. Then the time was up. 10 o'clock in the morning. For the first time in our marriage, I did not tell Kweku where I was going. To Ami's place as usual, dear. I'll be back before lunch. I lied again. I knew I would not be back for lunch, so I had prepared his favourite dish which he could easily warm and eat. He eyed me uncomfortably. What? I asked, smiling.
But you are in a party t-shirt.
He had noticed. Well, you know wearing party paraphernalia about town is part of campaigning, I glibly explained.
You know that can fetch you enemies.
He cautioned. I laughed and kissed him lightly on the cheek. He sent his regards to Ami, despite his misgivings. My husband was not a social person. Apart from church and occasions where he had to be present, he went nowhere. He was at 3 places in the house: the living room with the TV, the porch, or under the mango trees in the backyard with his motivational books, and he felt very content with his life, so I left the house without blinking an eye. At the meeting, one thing led to the other. I came home with my good news. I have been nominated the Member of Parliament for PAPC in our district. Kweku was not enthused.
So, you were at a party meeting. How many secrets more have you kept from me since we got married?
He laughed and I laughed along. What a sweet soul he was. He let me have my way because he trusted me and knew I would make sensible choices. We were not completely disconnected when it came to politics, but he did not want me to be in the public eye. From then on, my husband would watch me on TV on our campaign trails. I would come home worn out and barely able to stand on my feet. The grandchildren had come for a brief visit again with their nanny. I often heard him tell them Grandma was very tired and must not be disturbed. I loved the caring tone in his voice, but sometimes after watching the supporters heckle me, I could sense an appeal in his voice for me to decline the political appointment. He felt it was too hectic for me. But I had come too far to abandon ship. I was into it hook, line and sinker. It felt like a calling. Still leaning against the wall of the guest room, I wondered if my political activities made me neglectful of him. Could he have been wishing that we could have a good time together now that we were all on retirement and our daughter was older and married? Come to think of it, since I got nominated we had had no time for ourselves. My feet were not altogether inside the house than they were out again wooing voters. Then by and by, I won the elections and went on to become the Deputy Regional Minister. I had accepted a job which took me all over the region. My days were filled with working visits to the district assemblies to inspect projects. I could spend a whole week away from home. I selfishly enjoyed staying in plush hotels, enjoying meals I could not have afforded. It was heavenly. I suggested to him one day to come along on my duty tours. "Ha!" he exclaimed.
How would they refer to me? The husband of the Deputy Regional Minister. Not a pleasant idea at all? Would I walk behind or beside you? Or I would just be holed up in the hotel room or in the car until you came out of the meeting?
He finally ended his protest. I felt really pained at his assertion. He might be feeling belittled by my high station in society. Indeed, I had had no time for my husband and the house. I had had no time to catch my breath in recent times thus. I employed 2 house helps to take care of the house. One evening, I dropped off to sleep as soon as my head hit the pillow. I woke up in the middle of the night and found my husband gone from the room. I went searching for him again. I paused by the guest room and listened. All was quiet. I knocked lightly. Did I think he took long in coming to the door? Well, he came at last, sweating profusely.
Sorry, Grace. You were looking for me. I never thought you would wake up. You usually did not wake up until your alarm sounded. Sorry for getting you out of bed.
He apologized. Don't bother, dear, I said nervously, moving to an angle where I could see the bed. There was no one on the bed. I followed him towards the bedroom, but he turned into the shower. I quickly retraced my steps with anxiety to the guest room. I looked behind the door and under the bed. I searched for signs of pieces of garments in the drawers and under the pillows. I even looked up at the ceiling. No reason to, but I did. I hurried back into our bedroom. Kweku joined me, all freshened up and content. I slept, wondering what was going on in his head, knowing very well what was going on in mine. Was I wrongly accusing him? Was he giving me enough sleep time? Maybe he did not sneak anyone into the guest room at all. Then my heart skipped a beat. Was he having an affair with one of the house helps? They would not dare. Or would they? If I found out which of them it was with my husband, she would be packing bag and baggage out of the house at first light. So I watched them carefully whenever I was home. Did they smile secretly to my husband? Did they raise a brow or wink at him? Did any of them brush her body against him as they passed? One of them was old enough to be mischievous, so I concentrated on her. My unease increased whenever I was away. My head would fill up with images of what he might be doing with any women in our home, on our marital bed, or with one of the house helps. They resided in one of the outhouses, but he could sneak any of them in at night. What was he doing wrong? I was trapped in uncertainties. We've never been through any major marital crisis before. Our relationship had always been smooth sailing. We argued, but over nothing significant to draw us apart. What was preventing me from asking him about his visits to the guest room? I shrugged to myself. In the next few months, my work schedule intensified. The regional minister had travelled out of the country for a confab, so most of the work rested on me. Then I had to chair a one-week seminar of party representatives in the upper region. 3 days to the end of the seminar, I had a WhatsApp message from one of the house helps that my husband had taken ill and was rushed to the hospital. I panicked momentarily. Thinking quickly, I called our daughter, who was just an hour's drive away from our home, to get to the hospital. I came back after the seminar had closed and went home. I fussed over him, but he was distant. Kweku, are you angry about something?
What would you have missed from assigning someone else to chair the function to come home when you heard I was ill?
Is that it? I said to myself.
You don't seem concerned that I was ill.
Pity party, I laughed in my head. But Kweku, you were well taken care of. You had a doctor and nurses, and our daughter was there by your side every day. What again could I have done for you?
Oh, nothing, Grace. It would impede your work if you called to talk to me. I have noticed you never even call me.
Oh, please, Kweku. I was asking our daughter on your progress.
Well, I am well now. Can you go back to your work?
Kweku, that is unkind. Is my work not important?
So, you still don't want to acknowledge your fault?
Look, Kweku, look around you. Are we not living better than before? Am I not the one making life easier for all of us? Kweku angrily scrambled up to his feet.
Was I complaining about the way we were living? Were we so poor we could not afford 3 square meals before you went into politics? Now it's house helps who are taking care of me. Are you the only female in politics? Do they all neglect their husbands the way you do?
Don't be a chauvinist, Kweku. This is what I have always desired to do, and I got the opportunity. Don't pour cold water on my joy.
Then, Madam Politician, go and stay in one of the houses allotted to those in government and let me be.
Oh my word, Kweku, don't be like this. He was already out of the room in fury. I sat down slowly on the bed and flopped backwards. Was that my Kweku? It was like an outpouring of suppressed emotions. If I had not taken his minor complaints about my appointment for granted, I would have noticed his withdrawal in our conversations on politics and governance. Sometimes he was too quiet in responding to questions on his well-being. He also refused going to family occasions with me. I now realized he would have wished I had not taken up the appointment, but he had been careful not to offend me. He had never put obstacles in my way over my choices in life. Had I been too incensed in my glory to close my eyes on his needs? I left for a sod-cutting ceremony. I felt queasy and decided to skip the reception. He was not in the bedroom when I got home, Neither was he under the mango trees in the backyard. I checked if the house helps were all at work, and they were. My feet led me towards the guest room. I stopped in my tracks. I want no confrontation again, so I asked the driver to take me to Ami's place. Ami, what do you think about women taking up political appointments? She shrugged. Is Kweku complaining? No, I just thought I might be neglecting him. Yeah, you could be, but there are risks in every situation. Do you detect any infidelity? My Kweku. I touched the region of my heart. Not at all. I just want to know what I might be doing wrong to retract. You know this African proverb that says the one drawing a line on the ground would not know the line is going crooked. Ami tittered, gazing at me. I knew I was not going to be left off the hook. Do you spend time with him? What do you mean? You know Kweku and I are always together. I know you two lovebirds will always be together like swans. We laughed cheerily. Grace, I responded. I mean intimacy. She put on that puckered expression when she meant to take anyone to task. Oh, that. We have no issues over that, answered carefully. Ami had forever been my friend, but she was an incessant gossip. She could pass on my fears in a friendly chatter with some of our casual friends. I was therefore careful in divulging information about my marriage to her, and more especially about my position as a politician. I would hate to indulge in unfounded rumours, but she touched on a subject I had not examined: intimacy. Would Kweku care if we do not get intimate? He knew I had too much on my plate, and he would not want me to be ruffled. Or was that one aspect of my neglect of him? Was that the reason for the unknown woman in the guest room? So, whenever I came home, I looked for signs of infidelity. I would rummage through a briefcase he had not used in the past 5 years. I searched his pockets, his diary and his phone. I would discreetly scroll through his contacts for unfamiliar names. I never saw any new name, but I religiously scrolled through. I read his messages one day and found, "Good night, love." My heart raced mercilessly. Then I remembered he sent me that message a week ago when I had to spend a night away. He usually wrote to me such endearing words to pep me up, yet I never stopped probing. Suspicious minds, it was said, never paused to reason, I said to myself. One evening I came back from a marathon meeting exhausted. I took a shower and slept as soon as I hit the bed. I woke up 4 hours later and Kweku was not in bed. I went looking for him again. Now the grandchildren were gone and I passed by their door towards the guest room. I listened carefully and heard stifling noises. I turned the doorknob slowly and found it unlocked. I flipped the door open, turning on the light in one fell swoop. There was my husband in bed with the phone to one ear and his other hand in his. Oh my word. He flipped his hand quickly away. I knew what I saw. I was not a prude, but I got rooted to the spot, gaping in shock. He managed to put off the phone and sat up in bed looking so helpless and embarrassed. I sat slowly on the edge of the bed. That was a new phone he was using, I noticed. I took the phone and... oh my word, those were chat hotlines he had been visiting. Where did things go wrong? What happened to get him to this stage? I had neglected the virile man I married. I was working to achieve self-fulfillment. To all married women in high positions, success in your career is admirable, but never let it overshadow your role at home. Strive for balance. Your career can flourish without neglecting the bond with your spouse. Prioritize both. A fulfilled marriage is the foundation of true success.